one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, July 19th. Good morning. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista right now. In Ottawa, 19 degrees, mainly sunny. In Smith Falls, it's 20. Here's what's making news right now. Ottawa police are on scene right now just north of Gladstone and Booth for a fire investigation. Around 1 this morning, officers were called to that area for a fire, and road closures were in place near Gladstone at Booth, Willow and Poplar Streets. But right now, Booth is closed between Balsam Street and Willow Street. Now, City News has reached out to police for comment, and they said that they will provide an update soon. But stay with City News for the latest on that developing story. Now, there's still no timeline as to when the Confederation line will be up and running. City News reporter Chris Curries joins us with the latest.
It's been shuttered since Monday afternoon. Transit boss Renee Amilcar on what happened.
During a routine 50,000 kilometer inspection of one of the light rail vehicles, excess grease was discovered on one axle.
They pulled them all and have inspected 5 trains worth as of Tuesday afternoon, with many more to go. So because of that, she says she can't give an exact date when service will resume, except that she will provide another update at some point today. Replacement buses will continue to operate, and there's a possibility that happens with some additional buses. Amilcar said that would be under consideration. Chris Curry, City News.
Now, taking a look at your weather for today, here's our weather specialist, Denise Andriacci.
A seasonal day for Ottawa and Smiths Falls. Sun and cloud this afternoon, and this evening partly cloudy. Pretty calm and quiet weather today. Sun and cloud for tomorrow with some showers moving in late day, highs near 27. And then showers and the risk of storms 10 to 15 millimeters for Friday, highs near 23. Today it's very pleasant out there for some summer fun. A guaranteed high 27 degrees.
Right now in Ottawa, plenty of sunshine, 19 or at least 21 degrees right now, 20 in Smith Falls. The Premier will be at CHEO this morning for an announcement. Doug Ford, along with the Health Minister Sylvia Jones, will make the announcement. Now that's set for 11 this morning, but stay with City News throughout the afternoon for any developing stories. City News time, it's 10:04. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well. Good morning, Ottawa. Good morning. Welcome to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam is off. Derek Fage here, filling in for Sam from Rogers TV, filling in this week and next week. Sam on a well-deserved vacation. Thanks for joining us on Rogers TV and, of course, here at City News 101.1 FM, 1310 AM. Great show for you coming up. Got some serious topics. Of course, we're going to throw in a few lighter topics. As many of you know, I am a sports fan, so we'll talk a little sports today. Shai Davidi joining us on the show from Sportsnet, talk a little Blue Jays baseball. Tough outing for them there last night. Manoah with a tough pitching outing, which is really big. We're getting closer and closer to that trade date, which I believe is August 1st. So we'll get caught up with some Blue Jays baseball, which, of course, you can hear right here on City News. Going to talk a little Red Blacks as well. Ken Avrare, former CFLer, joining us on the show. He's got a camp as well that he's running. I believe the camp visited the team last week, and there are plans for another visit today. So we'll talk to Ken about that incredible comeback. Just an amazing comeback last week. And what he thinks about this new quarterback, fourth-string quarterback, with just an incredible comeback. 2 rushing touchdowns, no passing touchdowns. So that's something I'm interested to talk to Ken about, what he makes of Dustin Crum. Certainly exciting the last 2 games that he's played. He just missed doing the tying touchdown the week before, and then this time around he actually accomplished it with that 31-28 exciting win against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So does he have the passing necessary? Does he have that skill set necessary to compete and to flourish in the CFL? Because he certainly has the wheels. Boy, oh boy, can that young man run. So we're going to talk about that. Cursive writing back in Ontario schools. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on in the show. Looking forward to that. Of course, we'll have lunch with Derek. Lots to talk about. How much confidence do we have in the city and Alston and RTG? Will they finally get to the bottom of this bearing issue that has shut down the entire Confederation line? We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk dollars. Immigration Minister Sean Fraser said on yesterday that money for Toronto is part of a one-time injection of $212 million into the interim housing assistance program that's going to last until March 31st, 2024, because we're seeing, of course, asylum seekers, refugees, been living on the street in downtown Toronto. They now will be staying in a couple of churches, but still no news on how much Ottawa is getting. Rob Snow on Wake Up with Rob Snow had a guest on the show and saying, although the scale of what we're seeing here in Ottawa is certainly not to what we see in Toronto, but refugees, asylum seekers experiencing the same issues here in Ottawa. We had the federal government had a lease with a hotel with approximately 200 asylum seekers, refugee claimants. That lease unfortunately came up, and now they're struggling to find housing. And on top of that, the federal government would like to see the country welcome 500,000 immigrants per year by 2025. However, housing is going to be a huge issue. A Desjardins report released on Monday analyzed how much population growth among working-age Canadians is necessary to maintain the old age dependency ratio, which refers to the ratio between 15 to 64 years old, and those age 65 and older. It finds that the working-age population will have to grow by 2.2% per year through 2040 to maintain the same ratio. So with that 500,000 number of immigrants per year by 2025, Desjardins also estimates the country would need to build 100,000 more units every year to offset upward price pressures caused by having a higher number of permanent residents in the country. We'll talk a little bit about that, other topics to discuss during lunch with Derek today. Normally lunch with Sam, but if you're just joining us, Sam is off. She will be back in a couple of weeks. In a week and a half, she will be back. We got some tickets to give away today. Kempville Live Music Festival. Wake Up with Rob Snow gave away a couple of tickets. Well, the Sam Laprade Show has a couple of tickets to give away as well. We're going to do that a little bit later on the show, I believe, sometime in the 10 o'clock hour, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We've got a pair of tickets for Saturday, July 22nd, featuring Melissa Etheridge and Dawn Tyler Watson, plus more. Full lineup, by the way, you can find at KempvilleLiveMusicFestival.com. Just jumping off what David Smith was talking about in the Talkback Hour, a lot of talk about electric vehicles. This seems to be a conversation, actually, I've had with David for the last couple of years. Really interesting article by Maya Rabson from the Canadian Press. And this article goes on to state that Canada must build more electricity generation in the next 25 years than it has over the last century in order to support a net zero emissions economy by 2050. That's according to a new report from the Public Policy Forum. The article goes on to state, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels and shifting to emissions-free electricity to propel cars, heat our homes, and run our factories will require doubling or possibly tripling the amount of power we make now, the federal government estimates. So the report says, imagine every dam, turbine, nuclear plant, and solar panel across Canada, and then picture a couple of more next to them, each and every one of those. What's the cost estimate? Most estimates, by the way, are in the trillions. We are talking about trillions of dollars. It's also, the report said, going to require the kind of cross-jurisdictional cooperation, Indigenous consultation, and speed of decision-making and construction that Canada just hasn't and isn't very good at. Later this summer, Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault will publish new regulations to require all power to be generated from non-emitting sources by 2035. Are we ready for this? David, talking to a number of people on the Talkback Hour and asking, are you ready to move on to an electric vehicle? Can you afford an electric vehicle? I mean, used electric vehicles, first of all, hard to come by. Second of all, looking at some of the numbers, you $30,000, $40,000, $45,000 for a used. And I know some new come in that $40,000 to $50,000, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Just to continue on this, on average, it takes more than 4 years just to get a new electricity generating project approved by the federal government, and more than 3 years for new transmission lines. 6 provinces, including the 3 largest, get more than 90% of their power from clean sources that include hydro, nuclear, and wind. 4 provinces, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, still rely heavily on coal or natural gas for their electricity. The premiers of Alberta and Saskatchewan have declared the 2035 clean electricity regulations too costly and said they simply won't meet them. Another interesting part of this article, it goes on to say 5 years ago, the Ontario government spent nearly $300 million to end hundreds of renewable electricity projects the previous liberal government, had signed. Premier Doug Ford said the power wasn't needed and that wind power was destroying the province's energy system. Last week, however, Ontario Minister Todd Smith outlined a power plan that includes billions in new nuclear projects as well as a return to wind and solar projects the government once called a waste of money. It's going to be interesting. Canada wants to stop selling combustion engine passenger cars by 2035. By 2035. Quebec, by the way, has already had to start limiting industrial expansion because it can't fill all power needs. That province, with its 62 hydroelectric power plants, makes so much power, it sells a lot of it south of the border. But guess what? With demand rising, Provincial Energy Minister for Quebec, Pierre Fitzgibbon, warned in May that the power surplus will end by 2026. It says our surpluses have melted like glaciers under the sun of climate change. That's what he said in a speech to the Montreal Chamber of Commerce. It just gives you an idea of how far behind we are when it comes to infrastructure. I mean, we're incredibly far behind. All right, before I go to a break, an interesting thing came out from resume.io. This was a media release. They said, many Canadians, they say, have been there working in a toxic environment, desperate to quit and savoring the moment by writing a blistering, scorched earth resignation letter. Okay, well, that's at least in their fantasies, right? New research from the resume builder, resume.io, shows that while a majority, 68%, of Canadians dream about tendering an aggressive resignation letter, many would consider an aggressive letter un-Canadian. They conducted a national survey of 1,000 random Canadians to get the real deal on resignation rage, and this is what they uncovered. Okay, this is from resume.io. Not living the dream is the headline here. Almost 65% of Canadians dream about quitting their current position with an aggressive resignation letter. 32% simply said yes when asked if they dream about writing aggressive letters. By the way, if my bosses are listening, I do not dream of this. I love it here. 22.5% said yes, but I could never be that unprofessional. And a further 10.8% said maybe. Asked what the most aggressive thing they've ever written in a resignation letter, what it is. Almost 20% of Canadians cited a fairly safe general criticism of management. 18.8% called out their toxic workplace. Approximately 14% wrote general criticisms of co-workers' performance, and approximately 13% got specific with criticisms of management. The most colorful comment, one Canadian respondent said that while resigning, they told the owner pay was so bad that they couldn't even afford coffee. Asked what they would like to include in an aggressive resignation letter, 41% of Canadians would give general criticism of management. 36% would be specific about management criticism. 33% would call out their workplace as toxic. Over a quarter, 27% would get real with harsh criticism of the workplace. There you have it. 68% of Canadians think that it's un-Canadian, however, to write an aggressive resignation letter. This is a survey by resume.io. Thought I'd share that with you this morning. We've got lots coming up. Really excited about today's show. You may recall a story I shared yesterday. A professor from Simon Fraser University, Dr. Laprade, a health sciences professor at Simon Fraser University, stepped down as the co-chair of the Health Canada Scientific Advisory Committee on Pest Control Products on June 27th. In his 3-page resignation letter, Laprade said he worries the committee and his role as co-chair provides a false sense of security, that Health Canada is protecting Canadians from toxic pesticides. He will join us at around 10:30 this morning. I'm really interested to talk about that. And don't forget, we've got some tickets to give away a little bit later on here in the 10 o'clock hour for the Kempville Live Music Festival. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
I was born and raised in Musqueam First Nation territory by my mother, who spoke Hunkaminam to me. As a child, I ceased using my mother tongue, as to use any language other than English was considered not being Canadian, so I was told. The old people came to me in a dream and reminded me of who I am and where I come from. I have reawakened. My roots are strong, and I'm no longer a silent speaker. My language tells me where I am from. It defines me and guides me to teach others to learn and understand our culture and traditions. A gift for those in the present and the unborn generations. What was lost is found. What was asleep has awakened. My blood is here, and I am complete. I have returned home.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too.
Al-Anon and Alateen can help.
Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here filling in for Sam. I'm going to dive right into our next topic because this is something that affects so many people in our community right across the country, as a matter of fact. High rents in major cities like ours. Of course, you think of Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa. It extends beyond that even. High rents in major cities mean those making minimum wage are at risk of becoming homeless. This is one of the latest reports is telling us. Here to tell us, talk more about that, I am joined by Ricardo Tranjan, economist with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Good morning, Ricardo.
Good morning.
Wow, you look at the numbers, and I think there's been a lot of concentration on the housing numbers, right? The price of housing, but the price of rent is just so it blows my mind, Ricardo. I can't imagine how some people are managing to get by. When you see reports like this, Ricardo, what comes to mind for you?
Yes, for us, it was important to put some figures on this rent affordability crisis. We often talk about affordability and the fact that a household should not spend more than 30% of their total income on rent or housing costs. So what we decided to do is we calculated how much workers should earn in order to spend no more than 30% on their income and work no more than 40 hours and be able to afford an apartment.
Right.
And then we call it the rental wage for the one-bedroom rental wage, this two-bedroom rental wage, and then we compare with the minimum wage, and we did that for cities, provinces, and across the country. And what we found is that there is, as we would imagine, there's a huge discrepancy by between how much you should be making and what the minimum wage is at right now, which means folks are making really hard decisions.
So what is that number? What does it look like? How much would you have to make as far as minimum wage goes? How high would that have to go?
So for Ottawa, we calculated that the rental wage for a one-bedroom apartment would be $25.80. That compares to our minimum wage at $15.50.
Wow.
For a two-bedroom unit, and we understand that sometimes even a one-income earner needs a two-bedroom unit. Think about a single parent, a household where there's only one income earner, sometimes parents living with you and all of that. But the rental wage for a two-bedroom in Ottawa is $34.85. Again, compared to the $15.50
right.
minimum wage.
Ricardo, you also you point to provincial legislation that has sort of exacerbated market conditions in both Ontario and Quebec. Can you explain that for us?
Yes, we know that rent controls have a very direct impact on affordability and on housing security. It's important for tenants to be able to know and plan for rent increases year over year. And what we have in Ontario are policies that are going on the opposite direction that we would need to be going in this context. And since 2018 and rent controls no longer apply for new units. So anything that comes new into the market, there's no rent controls whatsoever. Rents have to sign a lease without not knowing how much rent might go up by in 12 months later. We also have research now showing that above guideline rent increase applications, this is when landlords apply for an increase higher than the guideline for the year, usually showing that they had some costs with renovation and they want to pass on those costs to the tenants. We have seen research mostly coming out from Universal Waterloo and Ryerson University that show that the AGIs are becoming more and more common, and we don't have vacancy controls. So between tenancies and tenants and landlords can increase rents by however much they see fit. In Quebec, there is vacancy controls. They're not enforced, and recently there's legislation that passed that make the lease transfer, which was kind of like a de facto vacancy control, was going to become a lot harder. So unfortunately, in the two provinces, we see policies going the opposite direction that we would hope for.
Yeah, and the reason I bring up Quebec is because, we have listeners that, work here in Ontario and of course live in Quebec. Many people find it more affordable on that side. And then you're seeing, people, David Smith from the Talkback Hour talking, earlier today about, he knows a lot of young people that are sort of been forced to move out to, places like Arnprior and Perth and Carleton Place and that kind of thing to be able to, survive on the incomes. Ricardo, really appreciate the time today. Where can people find out more information on this, by the way?
You can go to the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternative website and you can look at rental wages, and we have a map that shows neighborhood by neighborhood. And to your point, the map shows, because we have a 2018 study and a 2022 studies, so there's some comparisons there in the report. And one of the things that the report shows is that the situation deteriorated a lot in Gatineau in this 4-year period. Is the second place in the country in terms of negative changes from 2018 to 2022. So unfortunately, I think we are in Ottawa exporting some of that pressures to the other side of the bridge, and you can see rents going up quite a bit on the Gatineau side as well.
Ricardo, really appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. That's Ricardo Tranjan, economist with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Again, you can visit their website to find out the full breakdown. We'll be back with more. This is Derek Fage filling in for Sam Laprade. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Traffic and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, July 19th. Good morning. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now in Ottawa, plenty of sunshine, 21 degrees. It's 21 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news right now. Still no word on when service on the light rail will resume. All the trains had to be pulled on Monday because too much grease was found on one of the axles during an inspection. Now, the head of OC Transpo, Renee Amilcar, saying yesterday that service will resume as soon as it is safe to do so. So far, 5 trains have been inspected and there have been no problems. OC Transpo providing an update later today at some point, and Ottawa City News will cover that for you as it happens. Now, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre calling on the Prime Minister to deliver a plan in the next 24 hours to end the strike by about 7,400 BC port workers. They're back on the picket lines after their union decided to reject a tentative mediated deal. Late last night, the Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan and Transport Minister Omar Al-Gabra released a statement saying that while they respect the collective bargaining process, the port must be open. City News Time, it's 10:32. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here, filling in for Sam Laprade. This is a topic I spoke on at great length yesterday to open up the show. And that is the news, and I'm actually disappointed I haven't seen more media actually discuss this resignation. Dr. Bruce Lamphere is a health science professor at Simon Fraser University. He is also the former co-chair of the Health Canada Scientific Advisory Committee on Pest Control Products. He stepped down as the co-chair on June 27th. In his 3-page resignation letter, he said he worries the committee and his role as co-chair provides a false sense of security that Health Canada is protecting Canadians from toxic pesticides. Dr. Lamphere joins us here on the show this morning. Good morning, Doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. You're welcome.
Let's just start off with you going into more detail. You mentioned in that 3-page letter that you felt your role and the committee gave a false sense of security that Health Canada is protecting Canadians from toxic pesticides. Can you expand on that for me?
Yeah, I can, Derek. But let me just start out by saying a little bit about what we know about pesticides based on studies that are ongoing.
Okay.
We know, for example, that if pregnant women are exposed to pesticides, that there's an increased risk of childhood leukemia in their offspring. We know that some of the pesticides that have been used over the past few decades increase the rates of preterm birth or diminish children's IQ if they're exposed in utero. And so these studies have been done at the levels that we've been exposed over the past several decades. The other thing I want to just speak to is this idea of regrettable substitution. Okay. That is, historically, we started out using things like lead arsenate as an insecticide. That was discontinued because it was found to be a poison.
Right.
Then we moved to DDT, and that was shown to be poisonous. Then we moved to organophosphate pesticides, and now there are scientists calling for a ban on organophosphate pesticides. Now we're moving on to neonicotinoids and pyrethroids, and already there's some suspicion that those are toxic. So this is the idea of sort of a whack-a-mole. So
right.
That's sort of as a context or background. We're not talking about some abstract concerns. These are studies that have been going on for several decades. So this committee, the Science Advisory Committee, was assembled to help PMRA become more transparent and increase the confidence that Canadians were being protected from pesticides.
Right.
My key concerns were around not that the PMRA staff were incompetent or professional. They were very competent, very professional, and very polite. I think they bent over backwards to try to answer the questions they were allowed to. My sense is that they were constrained either by the mandate or by legal constraints, but that information was very hard to get at. So some of the tough questions we needed to get answered, they didn't, and I don't think could.
So, Dr. Lamphere, I just want to make sure people understand when you say PMA, that's the Pest Management Advisory Council, is that right?
There's two different advisory groups.
Right.
Pest Management Advisory Council, which is a different one than one I served on, and that includes industry representatives.
That includes, just to stop you there, that includes members of the pesticide industry, right? When you say representative.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they have a broader term of reference than this new committee that I co-chair, this Science Advisory Committee for PMRA. Our terms of reference were very restrictive. Initially, we could only answer questions when asked. We couldn't ask questions. There was, and I brought this up initially a year ago. I said, I'm uncomfortable with this. We have no ability to get answered difficult questions that we need to get answered. One of the leaders asked me to stay on while they revised the term of reference and to trust that it would be adequate. I did stay on for a year. I was unsatisfied with how they were modified or our ability to get at difficult questions and make sure they got answered.
So let me get this right, Dr. Lamphere. You're part of an advisory committee there to advise on pesticide, pest control products, but you were not allowed to ask questions.
That's correct. That was the original term of reference, and the revised terms of reference gave me very little additional ability to ask difficult questions and be confident that they could be answered. Now, again, let me just be clear. My sense is that this is a system problem, that either the mandate that the staff were operating under or legal constraints driven by the pesticide industry were what kept many of our questions from being answered. That was what was the problem. I don't think it was the staff individually.
Okay. I should mention, to our listeners and our viewers on Rogers TV that Health Canada did release a statement. In the statement, Health Canada said the Pest Management Regulatory Agency takes its role as a regulator seriously, and the pesticide review process remains fully rooted in science. The two advisory committees have different roles, the department said. While the science table is expected to give scientific and technical advice to help the agency make evidence-based decisions, the Pest Management Advisory Council advises the health minister on policies and issues related to pest management. So I just wanted listeners and viewers to get to that understanding that there has been a statement released by Health Canada. Are you comfortable, Dr. Lamphere, in what Health Canada is allowing when it comes to pest control products? So I gave an example yesterday, and I didn't name the company because I don't blame the company, but there are these companies now that come to your backyard or your property, and they get rid of mosquitoes for you, and they tell the neighbors, we're doing this, make sure you stay indoors and your pets remain indoors for 12 to 24 hours. I can't remember what I believe it's 24 hours. And Health Canada obviously has given the go-ahead for something like this. But, if it's toxic for you to be outside while they're doing it, and then my other concern is, what is that doing to the other insect population and pollinators and so on? Are you comfortable with what Health Canada is allowing?
I'm not comfortable with that practice. If there are emergency public health measures where we need to control mosquitoes, then absolutely we want to have those available. If we overuse those, then you have problems with resistance. And so we want to be careful about overuse. But we also need to recognize that exposures to those types of pesticides have been associated with increases in cancers in pets and in children. So if it's a problem like irritable mosquitoes, I would suggest we find other ways to do it. We've already, in many provinces, 5 or more provinces across Canada, banned the use of cosmetic pesticides, pesticides that are used to make things pretty.
Right.
And that was absolutely the right thing to do. We need to continue to find ways to reduce the use of pesticides. We know they're a poison. The only question is at what levels and what's the specific risks. But in some cases, we know what those risks are. And what we've been finding, not only for pesticides, but for other toxic chemicals, is in conflict with a basic assumption that was made 50 years ago when this science, as PMRA said, was designed. And that is chemicals, toxic chemicals that are not carcinogenic, that is, do not cause cancer. It was assumed that there were safe levels or thresholds below which there was no harm. Now, 50 years later, based upon some of the most well-studied and widely disseminated toxic chemicals like lead, like asbestos, like air pollution, like organophosphate pesticides, there's no apparent safe level or threshold found. Right? This is a basic assumption that hasn't been questioned and has not altered the regulatory system.
So, Dr. Lamphere, something else that you asked Health Canada is how they use biomonitoring studies, which look at human exposure to chemicals in its decision making. Did you get an answer? And for those that aren't aware what that is, maybe you could just explain briefly what biomonitoring studies, what that entails, and what answer did you get back from Health Canada?
Yeah, well, the specific example we were looking for was now a study was published in the last few years that found about 80% of pregnant women in Canada have detectable amounts of glyphosate. That's the herbicide used in Roundup in their urine. So that means that over 80% of pregnant women, and likely most Canadians, are routinely exposed to glyphosate. Now, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're routinely exposed to hundreds of chemicals, including pesticides, regularly. We could find most organophosphate pesticides in over 90% of Canadians. So those are called biomonitoring studies.
Okay.
And based upon this new study of pregnant women where 80% or more had glyphosate in the urine, I wanted to know, how do these new exposure studies or biomonitoring studies change the way PMRA regulates a pesticide? And I couldn't get an answer. I asked that question multiple times, and again, perhaps it's because of a legal constraint. I don't know.
Right.
But as I said, one of the two reasons this committee was assembled was, one, to increase transparency, and two, to ensure Canadians are protected from pesticides. And if we can't get some of those basic questions answered, number one, it's not transparent, and number two, I can't be confident that Canadians are being protected.
As far as how Canada regulates pesticides in this country, what do you think needs to be done?
Well, the first thing I think to say, and I think this is quite hopeful, is that if the new Canada Environmental Protection Act is adhered to as it plays out, and requires that we have the right to live in a healthy environment. It also calls to find ways to reduce exposures to chemicals that are toxic or could be toxic, like pesticides. Right now, that's not part of PMRA's mandate. So I think we have in place, if Canadian citizens speak out and demand that this is done in a way that it's rigorous and will protect Canadians, I think we have something in place that can help us feel more confident. But number two, we need to get industry representatives off advisory committees and councils on any health agency. That's just no longer acceptable.
Agreed. Yeah,
we need to have people who are
archaic. I mean, it's unbelievable that you allow that to happen. You basically allow for lobbying to happen when it comes to the health of Canadians. It's okay. I've run out of time here, but so there is a call to action here, Dr. Lanfear. I mean, listeners, what should they do? What can they do?
Well, I think Canadians need to realize, and this is true historically, very little changes unless there is a demand by citizens, unless there is an outcry or a crisis. So our political leaders need our help. They need to know what you want to be done to make sure that we're being protected from pesticides and other pollutants and toxic chemicals. So it will take some time and effort, but we need to let our political leaders know. And citizens know. There was a survey done a few years ago, and basically people said, absolutely, the majority of people said we should be restricting the use of, or if not banning the use of these pesticides. Now, we need to do it thoughtfully. It will take some time, but that was what the majority of Canadians said in this survey.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Dr. Lanfear, I really appreciate, your honesty and for this compelling interview. I really appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, you're very welcome. That's Dr. Bruce Lanfear, professor at Simon Fraser University and former co-chair of the Health Canada Scientific Advisory Committee on Pest Control Products. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
In countries surrounding Sudan and across parts of Eastern Africa, millions of people are at risk of losing everything, even their lives. Conflict, climate, and hunger are forcing people from their homes and causing families and communities to struggle for survival. The Humanitarian Coalition is present, providing food, water, shelter, and medical care. Please donate today at together.ca, and your donation will be matched by the Government of Canada. That's together.ca.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
Hi, I'm Paula Roy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back into my kitchen for another season of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. My approach to food is pretty straightforward. Fancy is fine, but when you're in a time crunch or have a really hungry and patient family to feed, I say simple recipes made with wholesome ingredients that you probably have on hand are the best. And that's exactly what you'll find on Paula Roy's Favorite Foods on Rogers TV.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here, filling in for Sam. Don't forget, we're giving away some tickets to the Kempville Live Music Festival coming up. It returns this week, starting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, running through till Sunday. So keep your ears open for that. That is coming up. Got lots to talk about with our next guest, so I'm going to dive right in. I'm joined by the Vice President of Media and Communication with Syntax Strategic. Jennifer Madigan. Jennifer, welcome to the show. Good morning. How are you today?
Thanks for having me. I'm good.
Excellent. Great to have you back here. Let's start off with a little bit of politics here. This is sort of the dog days of summer, but here we are talking about a by-election, Canada Carleton by-election. I actually had the opportunity to interview 4 of the candidates that are running in Canada Carleton, Karen McCrimmon, Melissa Conrad, Stephen Warren, and the independent Josh Rackless. Unfortunately, the PC candidate, Sean Webster, declined our invitation, as did the New Blue candidate, Jennifer Boudreau. What are your thoughts on these candidates? How well do you know any of them?
Well, I'm very familiar with Karen McCrimmon, and she's obviously a familiar face to that riding because she was a former MP in that area. I find it really interesting that the PC candidate declined the interview. He also didn't attend one of the debates, or I don't know if it was the only debate. I always find that very surprising, that people, aren't taking the opportunities they can to speak to their potential constituents. And I'll be really interested to see, like you said, it's the dog days of summer. I mean, how many people are really paying attention? Yeah. All the more reason to try to get every opportunity you can to speak to your voters. So I'll be interested to see what the turnout is in that riding. And obviously having Karen McCrimmon in that space for the Liberals, there's a potential that the riding could change. Obviously it was held by the PC since it was created in 2018. But if it does, I think that'll be a more a statement on Karen McCrimmon herself than, any major movement necessarily across the province.
Yeah, it seems to be a strategy, I think, Jennifer, for the PC party. We saw that in the Ontario election, that many of the PC candidates declined invitations. They did it with us at Rogers TV. They declined our invitations. That is a strategy. And I mean, we're even running an ad here on our station, the PC party, and it's actually Doug Ford himself doing the ad. I think we actually have it. I'll just run this ad here. Let's listen in.
Sam Laprade will be right back.
That's not the ad. That's okay. Here we go. Noah's got it now.
Ottawa, our Ontario PC team is hard at work, expanding Highway 417 and Highway 401 East, so you can spend more time with your family and less time in gridlock. We're training the workforce of tomorrow in the high-tech industries and the skilled trades. We're building the Ottawa Hospital, connecting you to care closer to home. We're getting it done for everyone in Ottawa. A message from the Ontario PC Party.
They're getting it done here in Ottawa, Jennifer. No mention of the candidate's name.
Yeah.
Right?
That's really interesting. Apparently, the PCs are worried about the riding. And so, I think they've clearly made a calculation that Doug Ford has that popularity that perhaps the local candidate doesn't have, and that's their better chance is, especially people who aren't paying that much attention but who want to participate. They might just, okay, I like Doug Ford, we're going to continue to vote PC. I don't know. To me, I find it's always, when you're taking a tactic like this, when you're avoiding any opportunities to actually be, maybe question, right? Obviously, you're going to go and knock on doors and you're having those types of interactions with people, but, avoiding the debates and the interviews, I just feel like it shows a lack of confidence potentially. Or, just a belief that you don't need any of this, that you can rely on other ways to get elected. I don't know. I find it interesting.
Yeah, what I should tell listeners up front as well, when we heard back from people in Sean Webster's office, they basically said he felt that it was better spent knocking on doors. then. And you know what? I should tell you that the forum as well, Jennifer, that we did was just really a sit-down interview. It wasn't even a debate. It was a sit-down interview, 60 seconds for questions on one on healthcare, one on education, one on transportation, and each candidate had 2 minutes. So, it wasn't like we were pitting them necessarily against each other. I just wanted people to understand what we did. And those other 4 candidates, you can see what their answers were on the Rogers TV website.
I'm a former journalist myself, and so obviously I really hold the industry in high regard. But we also know right now, particularly with a certain group of voters, that there is that lack of confidence in news, right? So there is a bit of a calculation there as well, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's move on to another subject very quickly. The federal government announcing $212 million more in funding for interim housing for people claiming asylum in Canada. $97 million now towards Toronto. No news on how much Ottawa will receive, but really we've found that this is a really difficult situation for asylum seekers and for the cities that are housing them. Here in Ottawa, I think we have a clip here from Wake Up with Rob Snow just about the situation here in Ottawa. It's a different ratio than Toronto, but here's the clip.
Decided they had a lease with one of the hotels, and that agreement, that contract came to an end and could not be renewed. And so suddenly you had 200 and something claimants who were being told, okay, in 3 weeks you have to choose between being bused to another community or just finding something else, to finding some housing on your own.
So a lot of asylum seekers, refugees finding themselves living on the streets because of some of these situations where they're no longer, could stay in a hotel. What responsibility do you think, each level of government, Olivia Chow, mayor of Toronto, is asking for even more money than the $97 million?
I think absolutely every level of government should be doing everything they can to be helping the situation. We know that we have a housing crisis as a whole in the country. And so, there needs to be some broader work on improving that situation. But, you look at these individuals who have come to Canada, and some of them, fleeing incredibly dangerous situations. Some have, put themselves in danger trying to get here to flee things, and then to come and sleep on the streets. Or, it's a really sad situation to see unfolding. And I really do think all levels, the reality is, I know everyone's got budget restrictions, but I think all levels should be putting in whatever funding and ideas they can to try to resolve the situation. Even the hotels, I was listening, while it's a stopgap and then they need to be doing whatever they can at this point, it's not ideal, right?
Right.
If they can't, they're living in one room potentially with no kitchenettes or anything like that. So I think we just really need to see a concerted effort to be improving the supply of potential housing for refugees and asylum seekers, and also others who are facing homelessness right now.
Yeah, we want to boost immigration. The federal government, wants to boost immigration to 500,000 a year by 2025. New report shows that we'd have to build 100,000 houses a year. This is a serious situation. Jennifer, I wish I had more time, but I got to head to the news here. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. That is Jennifer Madigan, Vice President of Media and Communications with Syntax Strategic. Lots more coming up here. We'll be back with more here on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
I'm Meg from Fit Over 50, and I'm here with Fit Finley. I want to invite you to join my upcoming workout, which is focused on upper body and lower body stretches. No equipment is required. All you'll need is a chair. Hope to see you there.
Fit Over 50 with Meg, weekday mornings at 8:30 on Rogers TV.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, July 19th. Good morning. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista right now in Ottawa. Plenty of sunshine, 22 degrees, feeling more like 26. It's 21 in Smith Falls. Here's what's making news right now. Now, breaking news from Ottawa. Fire. One person has died following an overnight fire in the Centre Town area. Ottawa Fire Services confirming to City News that there's been one fatality during that fire on Booth Street, and now police and the Ontario Fire Marshal are leading that investigation. Around 1 this morning, officers were called to the fire and road closures were in place near Gladstone at Booth, Willow and Poplar Streets. Right now, Booth is still closed between Balsam Street and Willow. But stay with City News for the latest on that developing story. Now, the light rail system still shut down and we don't know when service will resume. City News reporter Chris Curries joins us now with the details.
The bearing inspections are continuing and are expected to take some time. OC Transpo had fully inspected 5 trains by Tuesday afternoon. At that point, no issues, but additional work like running a bogie train along the line to provide additional data from the track continues. Transit boss Renee Amilcar.
I will be the first person on the train as soon as it resumes service. If the train is not safe, we will not run it.
She said an update will be provided today, which may shed some light. As for why this happened, they still don't know yet, but officials believe they're closer to determining a root cause. Replacement buses will continue to operate, and Amilcar said they will look into adding more buses. Chris Curries, City News.
And the pressure is growing for federal action to end the BC port strike. That includes calls for back-to-work legislation after 7,400 workers were about to face a tentative deal, and now they're heading back to the picket lines. With the details, here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
A little bit annoyed. We thought we had a deal.
That's Robin Guy with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, who tells me he's disappointed the Longshore Workers Union has done an about-face after reaching a tentative agreement last week. He says this job action has already disrupted around $10 billion in trade, and it's time for the federal government to recall Parliament.
We want to see all parties support back-to-work legislation so that we can finally end this.
The federal Conservatives demand the government take action to end the strike within 24 hours, but didn't say how they want the feds to do that or even weigh in on the idea of back-to-work legislation. Federal ministers say all options are on the table and they will be addressing the port strike later today, noting they've respected the collective bargaining process, but Canadians' patience is running out and we need our ports open. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista for news anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam is off for a couple of weeks. Derek Fage here from Rogers TV filling in. We've got some tickets to give away in just a few minutes, so make sure you stay tuned for that because the Chemphil Live Music Festival is returning. It begins tomorrow, runs through Sunday. Some great acts, including Colin James, Blue Rodeo, and Melissa Etheridge. So stay tuned for that in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk a little football, a little Red Blacks. Ken Avraire, former CFL wide receiver and team leading coach with Tectonic TLC, joining us here on the show. How are you today, Ken?
Derek Fage, if we're talking football, you know I'm a happy camper, brother.
I know you are. Boy, oh boy. Let's walk through that incredible comeback win versus the mighty Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 31-28. It certainly didn't look too good. Second half deficits of 19 points and 16 points in those final 3 minutes. I imagine you watched the game yourself, Ken. Just what's your thoughts on this young fourth string quarterback, Dustin Crum?
Number one, the fourth quarter, second and fourth quarter are the longest quarters. Fourth quarter is always the longest because they got to get all the TV commercials in, right?
Right.
And then you got that 3-minute warning, so you got lots of time to play some football and to catch up. And if you have momentum on your side, that actually feels like you have a full month to play football in a span of a couple of 12 minutes, whatever it is. But I think it was a combination of, one, they made some adjustments and start playing to Dustin Crum's strength.
Right.
And combine that with Winnipeg's inability to realize, wait, hold on a second. This is a running quarterback. We may want to spy him. We may want to stop him from running for 100 yards. So Winnipeg did not do a very good job in terms of adjusting to the adjustments that Ottawa made. So full compliments to the coaching staff, the Red Blacks, for making those changes.
Ken, what do you think about his skill set as a passer? You know, as impressive it is, you know, 103 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and, you know, obviously at critical points in the game, you've got the last play of the game, and then you get the 2-point conversion, and of course you run it in for the winning touchdown. But from what you saw, as far as, because CFL's a passing league, what you saw as you know, from him as a passer, what are your impressions?
Well, you saw 2 examples of his passing. One, in a very safe scheme in the first half where they're throwing little rubs, little RPO things, and Winnipeg reads that stuff like reading a coloring book.
Right.
But all of a sudden now you have to get the ball downfield. So now you have to protect. You're in the pocket. You're throwing 12 yards, 14 yards. You're throwing, you know, the vertical ball, second-level passes, which end up benefiting him. And because he got the protection, he was really comfortable with throwing the ball downfield, and part of the reason why Winnipeg's always been so successful up until this year, I think there's a big couple of chinks in their armor. You're seeing some stuff with Winnipeg that you haven't seen in the past couple of years, but offensively they've always been able a first down, throw the ball downfield, their attack, and I think the second half, playing from behind, Ottawa offensively had to go on the attack. And it worked out. Now, do they line up against Calgary and say, okay, let's go back to this RPO and keep it safe, keep the game close, or did they go on the attack? That's going to be the sort of the $64,000 question for Bob Dice's team. I think if they go after Calgary, Calgary's a good football team. They beat Saskatchewan last week, but they're not the same Stampeders we've seen from years past. I think Ottawa should go after them, go after the Stamps early on, and one of the biggest reasons is elevation. You play in Calgary and you go up for warm-ups, Derek. I've been there. I'm thinking, I want to score 73 touchdowns today because you feel so good.
Yeah.
And by the end of the first quarter, and we're playing Doug Flutie and the Stampeders, and he scored 73 touchdowns, and we're wondering where we're going to go for beers after the game. So get to the Stampeders early, go after them, be aggressive, make them play catch up.
Does Crum have enough around him to be able to do that, Ken? You know, you're a former wide receiver. Does he have the receivers that can help him get to that point where they can go after, they can go downfield?
I think he does. Hardy, a couple other guys that they have in that group. I think you watch game film, and they'll show me, don't tell me. Coaches have been telling them, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. Until they see success on game film and the light comes on, right, they're not going to believe that they can accomplish it. But I think they're going to watch the film, and for the second time this season where they've watched game film where they've won a football game, they feel pretty good about themselves. So then you have some momentum. Practice is fun. You're really focused. You're paying attention to detail. You're becoming a better football team. And I think that receiving core with Crum can do a lot of things. And I think if you're Calgary, normally what happens, you're going to have a linebacker. I know I'm preaching the choir because you know football. You're going to have that linebacker who's going to spy the running back. When the Calgary was here, Ottawa didn't do anything on first down, so Calgary would only bring 3 guys on second down and 10 with a linebacker spying the running back and dropping 8. Well, they can't do that now.
Right.
So now you have to keep another guy in the box because someone has to account for Crum, which means now you have one fewer defender in the secondary. So there's a lot of benefits for Ottawa from a scheme standpoint.
I know head coach Dice, Coach Dice was saying the defense, boy, oh boy, that defense really is what allowed them to come back, right? Because don't forget, they had that interception return for a touchdown. This looks like a legitimate defense for this team, Ken.
And I'm actually going to see them in a couple hours. They're about to go onto the field. I have my summer camp here at TD. The kids are around the park. So we bring them down. This is the highlight of the week for the kids. They get to go check in on the Red Blacks, get some pictures and autographs with all the guys. But you look at that game, the interception, Andrews' interception for a touchdown, bad throw by Colorados, but still a touchdown nonetheless. And then Adam O'Clair in pursuit, because in football, you may not know what you're doing, but at least do it fast.
Right.
And O'Clair tracked down the running back and caused that fumble.
Yeah.
And there was also a sack. So 3 critical plays in that fourth quarter that turned the tide, that gave the offense a chance to succeed. So this defense, it's becoming something special. And I think it is the personality of the football team starts with that group, the defense, as the offense tries to figure things out. You lose legitimately 2 starting quarterbacks to season-ending injuries. Most teams fall apart.
Yeah.
That's not happened with this football club. They're finding a way.
Tell me more about the camp. You mentioned the kids, of course. I think they went last week too, right? You brought the kids. Tell us what that experience has been like for them.
5 adventures, Monday to Friday. So coming out of COVID, my kids wanted to do something with their friends, but they were a little leery about COVID and also what happened with the Freedom March and everything else going on downtown. And I grew up downtown. And that was my backyard. And there's a lot of nuances, a lot of things they can learn from being downtown. So we take the bus, and up until a couple of days ago, we take the train, and we're at the Chateau Laurier talking about, the ghosts on the 11th floor, and is it the ghost from the Titanic? We're at the National Art Gallery. We're at the Splash Wave Pool. We're here at TD Place in the park. We're going to swim in a bit, but we're going to go check out the Red Blacks. We're doing a bunch of stuff. And you can pick us out coming back home on the bus or the train because they're the kids who are sleeping.
I love it, Ken. Always a pleasure chatting football with you, Ken. That's my number one sport. I grew up both watching and playing, and it's always great to catch up with you. Thank you so much.
And no, isn't it fun to watch the Red Blacks win a couple of games at home?
No kidding. I mean, what a disaster it had been up until that point. And, I'll say to everybody involved, right, from the team ownership to the players and the coaches and trainers, and then, the fans, they deserved it too, didn't they?
Yeah, and you got to believe in the mission. And I don't think there was a lot of belief in the mission until Bob Dice took over. And success doesn't come immediate; it's incremental. But those little steps, and all of a sudden you're becoming that football team that you imagined you can become. And that's the case with this Red Black squad.
Yeah, well said, Ken. Ken, thanks again. Really appreciate the time.
Anytime, Dark.
All right, take care. That's Ken Rivera, former CFL wide receiver, team lead coach with Tectonic TLC, joining us here on the show. Again, the Red Blacks in Calgary this weekend, and then the following weekend they are back at home. Let's see if they can win 3 at home. My goodness, that would be exciting. I believe they're back at home versus Hamilton. I don't have that right in front of me, but I think that is the case. All right, as promised, we got some tickets to give away right now. The Kempville Live Music Festival returning this week, running from Thursday, July 20th until Sunday, July 23rd. Some amazing acts, including headliners like Colin James, Blue Rodeo, and Melissa Etheridge. You could win a pair of tickets to Saturday, July 22nd. That is featuring headliner Melissa Etheridge. Also on the bill, Dawn Tyler Watson, another one of my favorites. If you've never seen Dawn Tyler Watson and her band live in concert, absolutely amazing. You can catch the full festival lineup And buy tickets, of course, at KempvilleLiveMusicFestival.com. But we've got some free tickets for you. Call in now at 613-750-1310. That's 613-750-1310. We're going to take caller number 11. Caller number 11, lucky 11. Daniel Alfredson's number, caller number 11. At 613-750-1310. Again, that's a pair of tickets to Saturday, July the 22nd. We'll announce our winner after the break. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
We all start on different bases, and only some of us make it safely home. Anyone can get stuck on first. Without a clear path to home base, there are over 235,000 Canadians experiencing homelessness every year. Raising the Roof is on a mission to help all those in need find a safe place to call home. With every purchase of a Raising the Roof baseball cap, you are helping us get one step closer to ending homelessness in Canada. Visit raisingtheroof.org to get yours today. Because everyone deserves a home base.
Send them home! Get rid of them! Gentlemen, please.
And so, this organ, which I regret I cannot name, because of the presence of these members of the weaker sex, who, although they are married, could not possibly endure...
Get them out.
Patience, Ginny.
Patience. Get them out!
Dr. McFarlane!
Mrs. Trout.
There's no place for women in a medical school. Yeah. Get them out!
If you do not bring this classroom under control, I am going to repeat every word of this disgusting lecture to your charming wife.
My friend Jenny Trout was not the only woman to face this kind of thing in medical school. But she would become the first woman licensed to practice medicine in Canada.
Today, I helped a parent feed their family by connecting them to a food program.
Today, I helped someone connect with mental health supports.
Today, I helped a couple struggling to pay their bills access financial aid.
Every day, 211 navigators connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211. Help starts here.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Welcome back. Great to have you join us. Thanks so much for spending some of your day with us here today on the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here filling in for Sam. Sam is off for a couple of weeks. Get to announce our big winner. Winner of a pair of tickets to Saturday, July 22nd, featuring Melissa Etheridge and Don Tyler Watson, amongst others, is Aaron Mason. Congratulations, Aaron. Thank you so much for calling in. Thanks to all of you for calling in. Aaron was caller number 11. Now, if you did not win tickets, well, there's two ways to get tickets, of course. You can head over to KempvilleLiveMusicFestival.com to get your tickets and to see the full festival lineup, or just tune in tomorrow, again, here on the Sam Laprade Show. We'll give away another pair of tickets. By the way, Wake Up with Rob Snow also giving away some tickets for a different day. So I certainly encourage you to tune in to Wake Up with Rob Snow between 6 and 9 tomorrow. I believe his date has Blue Rodeo as the headliner. Well, some news in Ontario schools. It appears that cursive writing is back in Ontario schools. Cursive handwriting instruction returns to the curriculum in grade 3 for many. This is a welcome and long overdue move on the part of the Ministry of Education. Some people are sort of shrugging their shoulders, but other people finding it long overdue. Here to tell us more about it, I'm joined by Hetty Rusing. She's a professor with the Workland School of Education at the University of Calgary. Good morning, Hetty.
Good morning, Derek.
So what do you make of this? Do you find this long overdue? Should parents and students be excited about this?
I think so. I think that language by hand, being able to write legibly and fast, engaging the hand-brain complex in meaning-making, when taking notes, for example, if you write by hand, but the key is the writing has to be legible and it has to be fast. And in order to do that, you need to make it connected, and that means cursive. Cursive comes from the French word courir, run.
Right.
Fast.
So, Hetty, why do you think they removed it in the first place? What do you think the thinking was behind that decision?
Oh, many things, Derek. That's a great question, and I'm asked that all the time. So when I was a kid, we were forced to learn a very embellished, loopy, twisty, hard on the little hands, musculature, hard on the visual to motor memory. Over time, that fell out of favor, and a lot of people just thought, this is a bit of a waste of time. And then around the 1990s, when the rise of 21st century literacies became up to the forefront, and keyboarding was put into the curriculum just became crowded, and it just became easy to marginalize cursive hand. I think it's back because of advances in research in the cognitive and neurosciences telling us about the centrality of the hands in embodied cognition, in learning, and how important handwriting is.
Yeah, and I guess, too, I would look at it, I'm not sure, obviously, in those younger years, it's beginning in grade 3, obviously it's not high school where you're welcome to bring in perhaps your laptop, right, into class. And you're still taking notes, right, in those younger years, I imagine, and this would certainly come in handy, right, for note-taking for young people.
Absolutely. In fact, I have a posting on the Conversation Canada about note-taking, so even if you are in high school or university, those who take notes by hand score better on exams than those who type. So what you need to understand is when you're just typing, you're transcribing. When you are handwriting, there's a processing advantage, and you're generating meaning, and this is encrypted far more deeply and meaningfully in the brain than simply typing.
So what sort of style, you touched on it, but if you could describe, the style, sort of the script style, do we know what style will be taught?
No, and that's not mandated, but if you look at countries like Finland, Sweden, Australia, Switzerland, and research coming from the United States, I'm thinking Stephen Graham in particular, he advocates something called a print-write, a kind of a hybrid that's an easy transition from printing to connected script. I might broadly call all of those things italic script.
Okay.
It's an old script that's, demonstrates a real economy of effort. It's a continuous stroke. There's no lift off, put down, lift off, put down. That costs you a little bit every time.
Right.
So it's a continuous, connected stroke that becomes very fluent, and that's the key.
Professor, what do you think this means then to the teaching profession? Are these skills that maybe they aren't aware? Like, are teachers going to have resources available to them, or will they be expected to kind of show kids how to do it? Like, I'm just wondering, because it's so new back to the curriculum, you may have young teachers who themselves weren't even doing it, right?
You're absolutely right. We have, I'm sure, a young generation of teachers who may never have been taught. I think the thinking back then was printing will be caught. No, printing is not natural the way that talking is. We need to repurpose old hard wiring in the brain in the service of putting shapes on the page that represent thought, and that's a big leap. And to make that go fast, that's another big leap. So yes, we have a generation of teachers, and in fact, a lot of the concern in Ontario has come from the Elementary Teachers Federation, Karen Brown, I think, indicating that September will be too early for them to prepare, to find... I'm working on a resource, actually. I'm partnering with the Calligraphy Guild here in Calgary, and we'll post something for free by September for anybody who would like to have it. We're advocating again for a very clean, uncluttered, simple, italic again, handwriting that we think will work for little kids. We need more upstream. So just because it shows up in grade 3 doesn't mean you don't get started in kindergarten already with passive movement activities, activities for encrypting the muscle memory, all those kinds of things, patterning of the hand, that all goes before you simply say, in grade 3, now we're going to do cursive. Your hands have to be ready.
Right. Professor, remind people, where can they find that information come September?
Oh, we're working like crazy. I'm going to send you a copy. If you send me an email, you can send it out to your readers. We'll post it on our website here at the Bow Valley Calligraphy Guild in Calgary. They have a wide reach, and I'm hoping to work with our Alberta Teachers Association, Early Education Council, hoping that this will be a preliminary kind of resource where we'll have models, tracing pages, practice pages, all of those kinds of things that we think will be helpful to get teachers started. We know there are no resources, not in Alberta either, so we're stuck, and Ontario's stuck in a big way, so it's a big ask for September. We know that.
Yeah. Professor, really appreciate the time today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well. That's Professor Hetty Rusing from the Workland School of Education at the University of Calgary. Lots more coming up. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
This is a brain in urgent need of mental health care. But because 3 out of every 4 Indigenous people experience racism in healthcare, she may not get the help she needs. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
For local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, July 19th. Good morning. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now, 22 degrees in Ottawa, mainly sunny. It's 23 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news right now. Still no word on when service on the Confederation line will resume. All the trains had to be pulled Monday afternoon because of too much grease that was found on one of the axles. Now, the head of OC Transpo, Renee Amilcar, saying yesterday that service will resume when it's safe to do so. OC Transpo expected to provide an update at some point today. Now, if you're heading to the bar to watch the Women's World Cup, you'll be able to enjoy an early morning beer. The Ontario Gaming and Alcohol Commission says restaurants and bars can start serving alcohol at 7 in the morning for the entire month of the World Cup. Now, usually alcohol is not allowed to be served until 9 in the morning, but now you can get access to that at 7 in the morning for the entire month. Now, Canada faces Nigeria at 10:30 tomorrow night. City News time, it's 11:32. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. As you heard from Perushka, you can follow up online. What's not online is our train system. The entire Confederation line. That's what you call a segue, friends. The entire Confederation line shut down. I won't go through why, because you've just heard it in our news. We've been talking about it for the past couple of days. Just unbelievable that we find ourselves in this situation. Well, my next guest has penned a long letter to Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. He is an assistant business agent with the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 279, and he joins us on the show this morning, Jacques Racine. Jacques, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So before we get in, give us a little bit of, you did this within your letter, and, you know, it's titled Mismanagement, and you've sent it to Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, and you've talked a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about your background so that we can understand what it is that you do and where you're coming from.
Okay. I have been currently employed by the City of Ottawa with OC Transpo for going on 15 years. I started off in the garage as a garage attendant for 2 years, and then I moved on as a general repairman for the last 13 years. And out of that 15 years, I have been active in the union for about 7 years, going from a part-time position as a grievance officer in the Amalgamated Transit Union up to currently now I am a full-time assistant business agent that represents close to 700 members between Alstom, Royal Canadian Mint, and OC Transpo.
Okay. And in your letter, you mentioned that you know that the union knows and has been advised that there are going to be layoffs within OC Transpo. Tell me about these layoffs, the reasons that they're telling you that they are necessary, and what does this mean for us as, you know, citizens of Ottawa who are, you know, using public transit?
Yes, so we were advised on Monday that 27 garage attendants will be laid off with a tentative date of August 1st. Okay. With that, they've said one of the big reasons is their $44.3 million in the deficit for the year of 2023 and could be pushing into the year of 2024 for that. And with the layoffs happening, and they are coming, that's going to be a huge impact to the service provided to the public. Our garage attendants at OC Transpo do a fantastic job of cleaning up the trains, the buses. These buses on a public route are used as garbage cans, as toilets. There's feces, urine, used needles. Everything and anything that you could think of on these buses has to be cleaned prior to the next day's service. So our garage tenants do take a lot of time to get these buses ready and cleaned so that they're reliable and ready for the service for the next day for the public. And with this layoffs happening, this is going to put an impact on the cleanliness of service that is going to be presented to the public. Management at this time saying it's not going to affect it, but taking away 27 staff that are needed to make the cleanliness and reliable service is going to affect it no matter what they say.
And Jacques, just to remind people, we're speaking to Jacques Racine. He's an assistant business agent with OC Transpo and with Amalgamated Transit Unit Local 279. You lament as well in this letter that you take issue with these layoffs, especially considering over the last 4 or 5 years that management has increased their management team quite significantly, right?
Yes. Over the last several years, 4 to 5 years, we have seen a dramatic increase in management, all the way from superintendents to section heads, program managers at OC Transpo. It's very evident within the system of the exorbitant amount of management that has been hired. So my big thing was, and why I'm taken back on this, is they continually hire top-end level management with huge salaries, but yet the workers that are actually doing the job are feeling the effects by management saying that they're $44.3 million in the hole, and now it's being taken out on my members.
So when we look at, obviously, you have, I'm sure, have had conversations with other staff that look after different types of maintenance and repair and things like that. You've mentioned Alstom in this letter to the mayor on quite a few occasions, and you even talk about the fact, because part of this issue is the axles and the bearings and so forth. We've heard that described quite a bit. And you say in this letter there are hundreds of bad axles lying around in a corner at the Belfast compound. And you go on to say, as Alstom has no idea on why the axles and bearings are not working properly. And I guess part of your frustration is you're getting layoffs in your department while other departments are completely falling apart. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that is correct. So right now, as long as the train has been running LRT, they do not know what is going on with these axles and bearings. RTG is blaming Alstom. Alstom is blaming RTG. So there is literally a stack of hundreds of bearings and axles in a corner, and they aren't throwing them out because they aren't sure if they are going to be coming up with a remedy to fix them so that they could put them back on the train. So they're literally just in a corner of the warehouse, stacked up in a corner, because they do not know what's happening with these axles and bearings. And as I stated, how many people, how many engineers, consultants is this city and these corporations going to be using before this can be what the key issue is and what's targeted for these trains? It's mind-blowing and baffling at the same time.
I wonder as well, because of the ongoing issues, the fact that they all of a sudden need to do R1 buses, Jacques, and put them in place to take care of the fact that we've shut down the entire Confederation. And don't get me wrong, for safety reasons, I'm sure they should have shut it down, but this is an issue that we're 2 years in, and we still don't have the issue rectified. You're laying off 27 people who clean buses and get them ready for the roads, yet you need more buses because you don't have the reliability of your light rail system, Jacques.
Exactly. So when R1 service is implemented, that means that buses that are going out to the outside communities, the places not outside the core, those buses are being rerouted to the R1 system. So there are people being left stranded at bus stations, bus shelters, expecting their buses to come, and they're not coming. And when R1 service is implemented, many buses are needed for this R1 service. And now, with all these extra buses needed, with all these layoffs coming, there's going to be less people to help clean them to have service for the public. So at the end of the day, nobody wants to be getting on a bus with feces on the bus or needles sticking out of the seats. But when there's less staff to do these jobs and they're calling for more service, something has to give. There has to be a breaking point at some point. The train isn't working.
Yeah.
They're trying to decrease staff on the bus side. So I'm not sure what their plan of attack here is.
I want to just touch on something else you've written in this letter to Mayor Sutcliffe. You go on to say OC management has been unable to hire fully licensed mechanics, electricians, plumbers, body techs, and HVAC mechanics in the last couple of years. Why is that?
The reason why that they're having such a hard time hiring is due to the wages and the shift structures.
Okay.
A lot of the wages on the outside from the city of Ottawa are paid significantly higher than the trades inside OC Transpo. We tried to get that increased in our last round of negotiations in 2020 with John Manconi, the previous general manager, and at that time it was a take it or leave it deal. Take what we're presenting as a global offer or go on strike. He was not willing to talk about wages for trades. And because of this, now we're at a problem where no trades want to come to OC Transpo because they're making a lot more money on the outside than they would be making here. And then when they come here, they're having to work days, evenings, midnights for up to 10 years. Most of the time, the junior people are working evenings and nights, working weekends, working during the holidays, making a lot less money than on the outside. We tried to negotiate, but it was a strong arm with a global offer saying take it or go on strike.
Okay. So when did you send this letter, by the way, Jacques?
I sent this letter yesterday to the mayor.
Okay. And have you heard anything back as of yet?
The only thing I've heard so far was, I believe it was his assistant, letting me know that the mayor will contact me if he has any issues with my letter.
Interesting. And do you expect to hear back? Are you encouraged at all, Jacques?
I'm encouraging the mayor to reach out to myself and or Clint Crabtree, the president of our Amalgamated Transit Union, to discuss these issues that we do have with their management team. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping it doesn't fall on deaf ears, but I'm hoping he does reach out.
Jacques, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on City News. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That is Jacques Racine, Assistant Business Agent over there at OC Transpo, part of Amalgamated Transit Union Local 279, joining us here on City News. We'll be back with more. Going to talk a little baseball coming up after the break. You can catch all the Blue Jays action right here on City News, as you know, 101.1 FM, 1310 AM. Shai Davidi, Major League Baseball insider from Sportsnet, joining us after the break to talk everything Blue Jays. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough, and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
Hey everybody, my name is Karen. I'm here with my best friends Shane and Monique. Join us on Rogers TV for Fitness Faction. Every week we're going to take you through a full body workout. We've got strength training, we've got cardio, we've got HIIT. Ladies, let's get back into it.
I think we've got 10 more skaters. Let's go.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Back with Derek Fage here. Sam is off for a couple of weeks, back to talk everything Blue Jays baseball. No better person to join us than Major League Baseball insider from Sportsnet, Shai Davidi. Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Let's first of all, everyone's eyes on Manoah going into that game last night. Bit of a shaky start there. Let's start there, Shai. What did you see from him, and are there reasons to be concerned after what many people thought was a great outing?
It's certainly not the ideal follow-up to that start against Detroit that you're referencing there, but It wasn't necessarily as awful as the numbers made it look. If there's if he gets that called strike on Juan Soto in the first inning, that eliminates the 2-run homer there, and maybe that changes at least the complexion of the beginning of that outing. And then in the third outing, when he gave up another pair of runs, it was a couple bad luck balls. There's a grounder that hits third base, deflects up over Matt Chapman's head, and if it doesn't touch the bag, then it's probably an out, and all of a sudden he's cruising a little bit. So there were a few instances of bad luck. At the same time, you'd like to see him maybe adjust to those a little bit better and certainly be a bit more efficient. He's certainly gotten to a lot of deep counts, and he wasn't able to finish off Padres hitters, a good lineup that should be noted, as effectively as he can. So certainly not ideal, but you factor that in. It's been 10 days since he last pitched, coming off the All-Star break. I'm not sure that I'd want to draw any definitive conclusions from that one, but certainly not what anybody would have hoped for.
Great article, by the way, by Shai on sportsnet.ca. Certainly encourage you to head over there and have a look. But your articles, the headline, a few realities facing the Blue Jays as that trade deadline looms. Let's go over some of those realities, Shai. And first, it's a bit of a scary one because I think it would be an absolute disaster for them. But making the playoffs, not necessarily a given for this team.
Well, it's a competitive year in the American League. There are a handful of good teams that are right around that race. Blue Jays are holding on to a wild card spot right now, but right behind them and the Houston Astros, who are also in a playoff spot right now, are the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, the Seattle Mariners. You could certainly look at the Mariners and say, their best baseball is still to come, or at least there's reason to believe that if you're a glass half full type in Seattle. The Yankees at some point are going to get Aaron Judge back and will presumably start playing better once they have him. And the Boston Red Sox just haven't gone away. They've been they're an interesting team because you could see them both potentially add or subtract ahead of the deadline, but it's going to be competitive. And if the Blue Jays or the Houston Astros or whoever it is suffers any sort of blip, they could end themselves, they can find themselves in a little bit of trouble. So there's a clear path for them to the postseason, but there are going to be some good teams that are just waiting to seize on any opportunity that may open up.
Yeah, and Shai, I think sometimes when we, the next reality, sometimes when we see it, perhaps we think, okay, here's a great opportunity, but they have struggled against AL East rivals so far. They have 25 games remaining with their AL East rivals, 15 of those contests coming, I believe, in the final 2 weeks, but they haven't fared well against them. No, they haven't. 7-20 so far this season. That's what it is. Wow.
Yeah, and look, to me, there's some aberration in that. There have been a lot of close games there, and baseball is weird, and maybe this ends up being one of those weird years, but that feels like a number that should correct. But you go into those, those final games, especially the last 15 to end the schedule. It's 3 against Boston, and then 6 each against Tampa and the Yankees. There's a lot riding on it, and sometimes momentum can do weird things and cause relatively small sample sizes to go in odd directions or unpredictable directions. And so, that's certainly a factor that needs to be considered. And the Blue Jays right now have to think about not only how do they make themselves the best possible team for the final 2 months of the season, but is there anything that they can add to address or maybe help attack those specific teams, knowing how important those games at the end of the season are going to be?
What do you think they're going to look at as we get closer to that deadline?
Well, look, you can never have enough pitching. As much as you say, we feel good about our pitching, that can change in a hurry. Mm-hmm. The thing is, especially from a pitching standpoint, from a position player standpoint as well, the way the roster is set up, there's not really a ton of space to move guys, so or to shoehorn in new players without subtracting a contributor that's currently on the club. And so there's going to need to be some creativity for the Blue Jays to pull off some deals beyond sort of window dressing on the sides. I certainly think that they could use another leverage reliever, but they may have that coming up in Chad Green, who's recovering from Tommy John surgery and is set to begin a rehab assignment this Saturday with Low A Dunedin. That's certainly one possibility for help, but maybe you need a little bit more certainty and you want to go get someone who can help you there. So that would be one area. I think they could use a right-handed bat. If they could find maybe a left-handed bat with a lot of impact that you maybe sub somebody out for, that could be something that you could do as well. So those are a couple obvious areas. And then, if you wanted to add another starting pitcher, well, that's a little bit more complicated because you'd probably need to subtract there to make it happen.
Yeah, agreed. Lots of things to look at as that August 1st trade deadline looms. Shai, always appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well. That's Shai Davidi, Major League Baseball insider on Sportsnet. Again, you can check out his latest article with those few realities. We didn't get to each and every one of those, so check out that article at sportsnet.ca. And don't forget, you can catch Blue Jays baseball right here on City News, 101.1 FM, 1310 AM. We got all the games for you here on City News. We'll be back with more. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
It was John's graduation. We were so proud. We all got together for a picnic. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and we listened. It helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of John, because now he has a real future to look forward to.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, July 19th. Good afternoon. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now, 22 degrees, mainly sunny. Feeling more like 26. It's 23 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news right now. Now, Now, an update now on that Centertown fire. It's now considered suspicious. Officers were called to Booth Street just after midnight after one person was found dead. Now, the property on that street also severely damaged by the fire. The Ottawa Police Homicide Unit and the Arson Unit now investigating. But anyone with information about that fatal fire is asked to contact the Ottawa Police Homicide Unit or Crime Stoppers. Now, the light rail system is still down and we don't know when it's going to resume. With the details, here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
The bearing inspections are continuing and are expected to take some time. OC Transpo had fully inspected 5 trains by Tuesday afternoon. At that point, no issues, but additional work like running a bogie train along the line to provide additional data from the track continues. Transit boss Renee Amilcar.
I will be the first person on the train as soon as it resumes service. If the train is not safe, we will not run it.
She said an update will be provided today, which may shed some light. As for why this happened, they still don't know yet, but officials believe they're closer to determining a root cause. Replacement buses will continue to operate, and Amilcar said they will look into adding more buses. Chris Curries, City News.
And now your weather for today. Let's take a look and get the latest from City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
27 is the guaranteed high. We have a mix of sun and cloud in the forecast today. Overnight lows near 16 to 19 degrees, so that's the range. It's pretty mild and comfortable into Thursday morning. Sun and cloud through a good portion of tomorrow, and then some late day showers. Mostly cloudy with showers and storms for Friday. On the cooler side, below seasonal near 23. The guaranteed high today, 27.
Right now in Ottawa, plenty of sunshine, 22 degrees, 23 in Smiths Falls. Advanced voting is now open in 2 provincial by-elections to fill the vacant seats in Canada-Carleton and Scarborough-Guildwood. The Ottawa area seat was vacated back in March when Marilee Fullerton abruptly resigned both her post as Minister of Children, Community and Social Services as well as her seat. Now, the East Ontario riding also been vacant since Mincy Hunter held one of the few Liberal seats and resigned last month to run in Toronto's mayoral by-election. And StatsCan says that older people who immigrated to Canada as adults were more likely to experience loneliness than those that were born in Canada. Now, one executive director from the Calgary Chinese Elderly Citizens Association saying it's tough for older people to get out on the transit system in that city. And that's when they try to participate in activities and socialize as well.
Our transit system is not very friendly. Sometimes it takes you an hour to go to places because you cannot have a direct bus to one place.
Now, loneliness has a wide range of health consequences, including a higher risk of mental health as well. City News Time, it's 12:04. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Sam off, as you probably know, unless you're just tuning in right now. And then I'll tell you, Sam is off for a couple of weeks. Derek Fage here from Rogers TV filling in for Sam. And usually we do lunch with Sam after the 12 o'clock news. But today, of course, it's lunch with Derek. And pulling up a chair at the table with us here today, I'm joined by Katie Burkholder-Harris, Executive Director of the Alliance to End Homelessness. Good afternoon, Katie.
Hi, Derek.
Great to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time. And former City Councillor Alex Cullen joining us. How are you today, Alex?
Not bad at all. It's summertime and the living is easy.
Excellent. I love to hear it. Unless, of course, you're using the LRT, Alex, or we're using the LRT, which I'll start with you with that being a former city councillor. Just seeing what's happened and maybe you could just discuss, Alex, maybe the leadership on this, first of all, how you feel that they've conducted themselves, how much confidence you have in the city, you know, Alstom, RTG, will they finally get to the bottom of this, of what appears to be an issue that's been going on for 2 years, Alex?
well, at least 2 years ever since it opened. So you would like to think that people want to, all the players involved, RTG, the Rideau Transit Group that is running the system, the OC Transport operates it, but it's RTG that maintains the rails, maintains the cars, maintains the system. That's part of the P3 arrangement that the city bought into under Jim Watson's mayoralty. And we've had challenges dealing with RTG, and the city's had challenges. They've been to court. They've fought over who's responsible for what, because this is not the first breakdown that we've seen. And thank goodness we had that public inquiry, that provincial public inquiry that dissected the past history, dissected all the issues that were identified, and the bearing issue is one. So what we have here is a new rail car on a system that may or may not have been designed properly for it, and putting stress on different components. And this leads to, well, okay, who's responsible for what? Alstom is responsible for the car. RTG, though, has, designed and built the rail. Is that an issue? And the RTG is faced with a loss of revenue for every day without service, so that's supposed to be an incentive to get the service back on. So you think that would be an incentive to get to the bottom of this. We, clearly, it's part of the shopping list of deficiencies that need to be corrected that was identified by the public inquiry. So you would hope that everyone would get to the bottom of it. It's in the best interest of everybody. The problem is this is going to cost money, and who's going to pay? And I would hope that they would agree to fix it and deal with the payment issue afterwards, but it muddies the water. So let's just hope the right things happen. It's not going to be a quick fix. They may be able to deal with the bearings right now, but the tightness of the curves, the design issues are still outstanding. The city has a special committee looking at this. It just underlines more and more the challenges you have by going into a P3 situation where the responsibility lies elsewhere. The city cannot compel RTG to do things, but those incentives are there. Let's hope that the right things happen.
So there's incentives with RTG, obviously, to get this fixed. But what about on the Alstom side? I haven't heard anything. And I'll sort of, Katie, I'll get to you with another topic in just a moment. I just want to conclude this one with Alex. RTG has the incentive because, of the loss of money. But Alstom, have we heard, Alex, about their contractual obligations if it happens to be an issue for them?
Yeah, well, this is where the finger pointing gets very interesting and lawyers get rich, because is the car, it's a brand new model car, that was an unfortunate choice that the city made. It didn't go for something tried and proven. Is it the challenge with the car? Is it the challenge with the rails? And one would have you believe is the other. So that has to be sorted out. What I'm hoping that the public inquiry makes clear, there's a problem here, fix it, and then you guys can duke it out in court and figure out, who pays how much for what, rather than trying to avoid accountability, try to avoid taking positions that may cost you downstream. I mean, the city, this has been one of the worst rollouts of any rapid transit line that I can remember. The potential is there, the need for the system is there, but you've got to make it work. And here we have LRT2 coming as well. So your question about, what's Alstom's role, what's RTG's role, that has to be sorted out. But let's find out what the root cause is and fix it, and then sort out who pays for what later on.
Right. I'll go over to Katie with this, because I want to get on to another topic. Immigration Minister Sean Fraser said on Tuesday that there will be a one-time injection of $212 million into the interim housing assistance program that will last until March 31st, 2024. We know that Toronto, they have committed, the federal government's committed another $97 million. to help the city house an influx of newcomers. And we're talking, refugee claimants, asylum seekers. Still no news, though, Katie, on if Ottawa is getting any of those funds. From your experience, from your understanding, do we find ourselves in the same situation as Toronto right now? Obviously a different ratio, I'm sure.
Yeah, a different ratio, but we are absolutely in the same position. We certainly have refugees, newcomers, asylum seekers struggling to find housing here. We know that, families experiencing homelessness is the biggest growing population of people experiencing homelessness, and that's, I think, around 50% are refugees. And so it's pretty serious.
Yeah.
We know that, we do not have enough space for folks. I understand Toronto's approach. I think it's also really sad that we can't bring people into shelter, but we also need to look to permanent solutions, and shelter is not a permanent solution. We have to focus on subsidizing rent for people so that they can actually find housing and have it be affordable. But I think, good to hear this money is coming in. My understanding is some is going to be used to backfill costs of municipalities already, but also moving forward extra money. But we have to stop focusing on the Band-Aid solution here. And we know that increasingly immigration policy is becoming housing policy.
Yeah, 100%. We had a representative from Refugee 613 on Wake Up with Rob Snow earlier today, and she had mentioned here in Ottawa that we just had, the federal government has these leases, right, with hotels where refugee claimants, asylum seekers, stay. One of these leases is just ended, and it has not been renewed with the hotel, and I'm not sure whether that was a decision from the hotel or the federal government. I believe it was a decision by the hotel, leaving then all of a sudden you've got 200 refugees that in 3 weeks, we need to find another place for them. Alex, how should the city of Ottawa deal with this difficult situation in the meantime before they find out if they're getting any of this funding from the federal government?
Well, the city of Ottawa is not alone in this. We've heard about Toronto. It's going to be the same with all the other major cities across Canada. And this is one of the problems of the split responsibilities people have. The federal government controls immigration, but when people land, they come onto our welfare system, our shelter system, that's municipal and provincial, and really calls for the three levels of government to get together, work out a protocol to deal with this. Yes, we want immigrants. Yes, we do accept refugees. Of course we do. We're a humanitarian country. But there is a disconnect between the different levels of government and how to accommodate all these folk. And so they need to get together. The City of Ottawa will work through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM. The provinces need to get together because it's largely Quebec, Ontario, BC, but it does spill over to the other provinces. But they need all to get together because we can't have this continue where, people come in, overloads the system, and then, someone says, I'm drawing the line here, and then people are found sleeping on the streets. It just compounds an already bad situation. So the smart thing to do is pull together, get a protocol in place so that we can deal with this thing rationally.
Katie, as far as, other issues facing those that that find themselves still looking for homes, what have you been seeing lately, since you and I last spoke? What do things look like according to the Alliance to End Homelessness at this time?
So I always want to go back to the data, and what we're seeing with the data is that a lot of newcomers, and that obviously includes, a lot of refugees, asylum seekers, but a lot of newcomers are actually really low needs in terms of additional services and supports. They need affordable housing, and a lot of the time they're ready to then move forward if they had safe, stable, affordable housing. And so a lot of the time we have rhetoric, and it's anecdotal, I would say, and the data doesn't reflect what we often say say with anecdotes of we need boatloads of additional supports. That may be true, and it is true for a smaller segment, but a lot of the time, you know, refugees and asylum seekers and newcomers broadly come into the shelter system and they just need housing. They need the help to get the housing, and they need the financial support to keep the housing. And then often when that stability is there, people move forward and can really thrive. And I think right now, you know, we're looking at this challenge so much about, you know, Band-Aid, last minute, how do we find a space to keep people? And you have kids growing up in hotels and shelters trying to go to school. Like, people are still making a life. They're going to school, they're working. Yeah. And we're increasingly just broadly in the shelter system seeing people work full time and not be able to find housing. So that to me is we need to look at the data. What are the needs that people are actually presenting? And a lot of the time, the depth of need is more the housing piece, getting the housing. And once they're set up in that way, they're often able to move forward in really great ways and, you know, be a part of our communities. So I wish that we would look there first and focus on that piece and actually be quite aggressive in trying to rapidly rehouse people. I think there's an opportunity there to show that we can do it. It's been done in other places, and that's really where I'd love to see our focus. But I also appreciate that we have a totally overwhelmed system, and we do not have enough resources, both in housing and also in the people who can provide the support to get the housing. And those are big challenges that we see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've got some more things to talk about. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Alex Cullen, Katie Burkholder after this. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Your visit isn't really necessary.
I'll judge for myself.
I know you're an MP, Miss McPhail, but a woman has never...
I am not leaving till I do. How can such a society be called civilized? If those appalling conditions don't change, that prison will explode!
Perhaps our lone lady member is too fragile to know what is normal in a prison.
Is this normal?
Her courage would lead to the overhaul of the entire Canadian penal system. Agnes McPhail, Canada's first woman MP.
My husband is a wonderful man and a great father when he's not drinking. I'm so angry he chooses alcohol over us. If he really loved us, he'd stop drinking, right? My counselor suggested I try Al-Anon. I didn't understand why. I'm not the one with the problem, but I'm glad I went. Do you worry about someone's drinking? You are not alone. Al-Anon or Alateen can help. Call 866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here filling in for Sam. Sam off for a couple of weeks. We continue lunch with Derek, Alex Cullen, former city councillor, and Katie Burkholder-Harris, executive director of the Alliance to End Homelessness. Going to stay on the same topic to a certain degree because a Desjardins report released Monday analyzed how much population growth among working age Canadians is necessary to maintain the old age dependency ratio, which refers to the ratio between 15 to 64-year-olds and those aged 65 and older. And it finds that the working age population will have to grow by 2.2% per year through 2040 to maintain the same ratio that existed in 2022. And if the country wanted to go back to the average old age dependency ratio it had between 1990 and 2015, that group of Canadians will have to grow by 4.5% annually. The reason this is important is because the Liberal government is eyeing higher annual immigration targets, which would see the country welcome 500,000 immigrants per year by 2025. The opposite, it's sort of on the other end of this, speaking about, homes and affordable housing, especially, Katie, that you and I have talked about in the past, is that they estimate the country then would need to build 100,000 more units every year to offset upward price pressures caused by having a higher number of permanent residents in the country. And I'm not sure any of us could say that we're really encouraged that we're moving in that direction to build 100,000 more units every year, Katie.
Yeah, and we're actually 5.2 million builds behind.
5.2 million, oh my goodness.
That's it's a pretty big number, and I think, some of what Alex was speaking to before as well. I mean, this is an all hands on deck emergency for every level of government, and truly, I am not sure that any level of government understands the level of crisis we are facing when it comes to housing. And interestingly, in the past two elections, the immigration targets for both the Liberals and the Conservatives are virtually the same. Everybody knows our only way to grow our population is through immigration. Mm-hmm. So it's wonderful that we have these targets and we know how much people bring to our country and our communities. And at the same time, it's exactly as we were saying, if we don't have homes for people to live in, more so if we don't have affordable homes for people to live in, I don't know that we're going to be able to reach the targets because of people even wanting to come to Canada. And a big part of this is, the rental, purpose-built rental in particular. We have a real focus in Canada on home ownership. Yeah. That is not actually the mindset of many, many parts of the world. And sadly, I actually think that's something we need to really question and think differently about. We need mass amounts of affordable rental housing in order to navigate this. And I think, one of your later topics is around inflation. Interestingly, right now, developers are not building because inflation is too high. So a real piece that we should be thinking about is nonprofit housing that is mission driven. There's no profit motive. There's no, investor on the other end of that housing, no requirement to make money. And then you can actually charge rent at levels of basically breaking even. We desperately need much, much more of that type of housing. And that requires municipalities to give free land and change zoning bylaws to enable it. It requires the provinces to provide operating money, and it requires the feds to invest deeply in capital and targeted capital towards the right kind of housing.
Well, we'll let Alex chime in here because Alex, as Katie just said, one of the things they'd like to see is for a municipality like Ottawa to provide the land and to help out with nonprofit housing. How realistic is that, Alex?
Well, first of all, the municipality does not have a land bank of acres or hectares of land to give away free to anybody unless you're starting to give away parks, and that's just not going to happen. But it is an all-hands-on-deck situation, as Katie has described. We tend to forget that our housing industry is market driven, and you would think with all this pressure, with all these high prices, that developers would be flocking for the opportunity to make money by building housing because there's money to be made. And Katie makes the point that there are problems with pricing, with the supply system. There's not enough workers, for one thing, to meet the demand. You've had the provincial government try to lay the blame on bureaucratic hurdles at the municipal level, but it is a housing market-driven industry, and is calling out for government intervention. And Katie talked about some of these things, how the federal government can invest in capital, how the provincial government can help with operating, particularly for nonprofits. Municipalities certainly are willing to work with nonprofits. We have that long history here in Ottawa, but you need the other players at the table. And it's not that the federal government or the provincial government is going to make housing affordable for everybody, but you need to prioritize. And particularly low-income people, particularly, as Katie said, purpose rental housing, providing those incentives so that they do get built, I think that's the way to go. And there's an economic spin-off by promoting housing as well. I mean, the accelerator factor when you have an active housing market, particularly in building, the requirement for materials, the requirement for supply, for labor, provides all kinds of spin-offs. And that's where, quite frankly, immigration helps, because that's a good source of labor. But you've got to get people at the table. And just moaning about it and saying, municipalities can change the zoning as a magic solution. No, it's not. Municipalities don't have the land to give away for free. And there is an issue with making housing affordable, and affordable for whom. And the federal provincial governments were in this business, providing rent-geared to-income housing decades ago. They exited under the Chrétien Harper regimes. They need to come back in, but it also calls for the provinces to pony up at the table. So we have to recognize if the market's not going to respond, then we're going to have to ask governments to come up with a plan to make an intelligent use of the money to meet this demand, because we do need that immigration to help grow our population. They do need housing. So it's a two-way street on that argument.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you both have such great perspectives. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks to both of you for joining me.
Pleasure. And Katie, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks to you both. Thank you, Katie. That's Katie Burkholder-Harris, Executive Director of the Alliance to End Homelessness, and Alex Cullen, former City Councillor. We'll be back with more. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Rogers TV presents a series of original creative stories animated by storytellers for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Hey, man. Want to go for a ride?
Sure. Toss me a life jacket.
I'm gonna need this. I'm gonna need this.
Nope.
I'm gonna need this. And this.
I think we should stay here. I thought you used to play ball.
Hi, I'm Paula Roy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back into my kitchen for another season of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. My approach to food is pretty straightforward. Fancy is fine, but when you're in a time crunch or have a really hungry and patient family to feed, I say simple recipes made with wholesome ingredients that you probably have on hand are the best. And that's exactly what you'll find on Paula Roy's Favorite Foods on Rogers TV.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, July 19th. Good afternoon. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista. Right now, 23 degrees, partly cloudy in Ottawa, 23 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news right now. The Ottawa Police Homicide Unit and Arson Unit now investigating a suspicious fire in the Centertown area. Just after midnight, officers were called to Booth Street and found one person dead. Now, after the fire was extinguished, the property also sustained damage from the fire. Police say the fire now considered suspicious, but no word of any suspects. Anyone who may have information about the fatal fire is asked to contact Ottawa Police or Crime Stoppers. Now, still no word on when service on the light rail will resume. Transit officials said inspections were underway yesterday, including on 5 trains. Now, they also had a bogie train running on the tracks to test the wear and tear on the axles. But in the meantime, R1 replacement buses continue to run from Tunney's to Blair Station. OC Transpo expected to give an update at some point today. City News Time, it's 12:31. I'm Perushka Gopal-Kista for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Business Lunch on City News, brought to you by the Ottawa Business Journal.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. It is time for the Ottawa Business Journal Business Lunch. Derek Fage here, filling in for Sam. I'm going to throw it out there right away. I may be talking with a lot of bias right now because, honestly, one of my favorite experiences to go shopping is at La Bottega. I mean, it is an iconic spot down on George Street, of course, in the historic Byward Market. And many of you probably don't realize that this has been like unbelievable. It's been going on for longer than you think because the current owners took over the building in 1995 from the previous owner. So we're looking at celebrating 100 years since there's been an Italian grocer in that spot. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind to be able to say that. Well, joining me are the co-owners of La Bottega Nicastro, Rocco and Pat Nicastro. How are you, gentlemen?
Hey, how you doing? How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So for those that, Pat, I'll start with you. For those that don't know how, how long this has been around and the history behind it, tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, well, it's a great story. I mean, the Sasso family opened that store in 1923. Italian immigrants, Sicilians, the classic story. They wanted to bring some Italian food to their heritage back to Canada here in Ottawa, and they opened a tiny little store, importing stuff, selling fruits and vegetables, and yeah, over the years. In that same spot in the Byward Market, right? They were right in front of the Byward building, and when they opened, it was basically horse and buggies that were delivering the stuff, and yeah. So we took over in '95, and we've been there now almost 30 years. But this year marked 100 years that La Bottega, the building that houses it, has been an Italian grocery store, and we feel blessed to continue on and
no kidding,
and still be there and still thriving.
Rocco, so how did your family come to take over the business? How did that happen?
Well, so our dads and Charlie Sasso, who was operating the grocery store pre-1995, I guess they just had an agreement. They always loved the area. And they said, Mr. Sasso, one day when you're ready to hang up your cleats, we'd love to have a store here. And admirably, he stuck to his word, and he didn't have to. He had multiple offers from some big guys who wanted to take over the property and develop and so forth. But he stuck to his word, and called our dads and said, "Listen, I'm willing to hand over the keys." So they took the opportunity. Pat was just finishing, or he was just in his last year of university, and so they took the opportunity and they ran with it. So it was actually a story that's rooted in, integrity and just, Mr. Sasso was a man of his word. So it's
right.
refreshing to know that, that still is around. And, it's a big reason why we're able to celebrate almost 30 years. We're just down to that verbal agreement between the gentlemen. So
I love that. What a great story. And Pat, over the 30 years, I'm sure, being down there on George Street, it's gone through a lot. The Byward Market has gone through restructuring. They're talking about, revitalizing that area. What changes have you seen, Pat, in that area since you've been around almost all these 30 yeyears?
Honestly, we've seen it all. When we first came there, it's interesting because the area was a little bit in despair. Most of the businesses beside us had closed up, and it was going through some issues. The Byward Market, people thought we were crazy investing in that area.
Yeah.
And, we just went full force, and we didn't look back, and we believed in it, and we knew that there was a need for our kind of business and take it at another level than what it was. And from day one, we were successful. The area, ups and downs for sure, but Bottega has really just kept going, and we've pretty much grown every year. COVID did throw everything off.
Yeah, no kidding.
Probably the biggest change, but over the years, we've seen it come and go. We've seen businesses come and go. We've seen great family businesses leave and come. We've seen major chain stores come and go, but there's a core of family businesses still in the market there that are still running it. The Lapointe family, the Saslov, the meat merchants, Byward Fruit, La Bottega. We're all still there, and they're great stories, and their families, and they work hard every day, and they really believe in the area and they love it. So we're still all happy to be there.
And I imagine when you took over, Pat, that there had to be some pretty major changes. With a family that had run it since 1923, and here you are taking it over in 1995. But what state was the store in at that time?
The store was an antique store. Basically, it looked, and with all due respect, it looked like a museum.
Really?
Mr. Sasso lived upstairs, and he would just come and open up when he wanted, and he was quite the character. And he kept the store the way it was, and he was happy with that. And if he didn't like something, he kicked you out. It was just the way it was then. We came in with a different mentality. We were young, excited. We've been in this business for a long time. Our family has been in the Italian food business here in Ottawa for 50 plus years. We are the fifth generation of food merchants. So we just brought a new life and a new excitement to it, and we're still doing it. And Rocco became a partner with me a few years later, and because I needed the help, and the business was growing so fast, and we don't look back, and we're constantly evolving, and we know that to stay relevant, you got to evolve, and that's what we're always doing.
Yeah, and Rocco, I would be shocked if there's a listener or a viewer watching on Rogers TV that have never visited the store. As I mentioned off the top, I am biased because it's one of our favorite stops, my wife and I. But if they're not familiar with what you offer, it really is a great opportunity for so many unique items, right, Rocco?
Yeah, believe it or not, we still get people, and they're actually, it's refreshing when they come in, and we'll have maybe a regular who brings somebody who's never been to the store, never had lunch in our cafe. And those are my favorite types of customers, because that their experience with you starts from that moment. So it's nice to still have people come through our doors that are familiar with either our family history. They come in very unbiased, and we're able to take them under our wing and hopefully, develop a rapport that'll, last, a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, here you'll find everything. We have some, one of the biggest compliments is when we get tourists coming in from Italy, and they'll say, like, you have more selection here, more items in this store than we're used to seeing back home.
Wow.
There's everything back there. So, you know, when it comes from somebody from that context, it's a compliment, because they really are exposed to everything over there. So it's you know, it gives you an indication of the variety and the quality of product that we have, and you know, concentrated in such a small space, given, you know, what you're used to seeing in grocery stores. I mean, these mammoth stores that seem to have endless aisles. I mean, we're really about just compacting an experience and giving this, you know, the consumer as much variety and as much selection and quality of service that we can deliver. So.
Yeah, and Pat, you expanded into the next door unit, but you've even expanded beyond the Byward Market as well, right?
Yeah, we've opened a few cafes now. We have 2 cafes currently open, and one is opening in the Ottawa airport.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
We were part of their expansion plan. They wanted local, iconic businesses, and we were so fortunate that they chose us. So you'll be able to get sandwiches and stuff out of the airport coming soon. We have one cafe in Gatineau and one cafe in the West End in the IKEA Mall. So those are cafes, sandwiches, takeout items, and you know, core grocery products. Where downtown in the Byward Market, it's a full, you know, you got a full spectrum of grocery and takeout. These little cafes are smaller versions, more on a eat-in basis, and we're very happy with them. They're performing so well. So the interesting thing over the years is, you know, we've seen customers that are students that come in, they start coming to Bottega just for the sandwiches. You know, we have well-priced, big sandwiches that they love, and they've been coming for years while they were a student, and then they get their first job, and then they become customers, and they're bringing their families and buying products that they can cook at home, and that's very rewarding for us, because we get to see generations of customers coming. And, you know, we've employed the kids of some of our original customers over the years, and now we're seeing their kids come. So it's quite exciting, and it's nice to see people still shopping at somewhere that's been around so long, and it's part of their history and part of their family. Our family becomes part of their family. So.
Pat, walk us through that La Bottega store there. I mentioned, you know, unique items, so what people can find. You mentioned the sandwiches, which, you know, huge fan. They're just amazing. But, you know, it's a grocery store, but as I said, a lot of unique items, things you won't find anywhere else. The deli counter, the cheeses, I mean, just amazing products.
I mean, I'd like to say it's a market. It's really an Italian market in the market. We are a restaurant cafe. We are a coffee bar. We are a sandwich takeout bar, and then we have every imaginable Italian food product that you'd want or you could find. We import our own lines of food, so we deal directly with Italian producers. So we're quite competitive in what we sell. People are shocked when they see that, you know, the olive oils, the pasta, this is all stuff we import directly ourselves, and we sell a lot of it, and we're proud to. We have our own brand of products that you can only find in our stores, and anything really Italian and food-wise you'll find. And if you're hungry and you come in there, we'll feed you. If you want to go home and make something for yourself and your family, we'll take care of you that way too. So there's a lot. There's a lot in a little space. We're not a huge store, you know. We're about 6,000 square feet downtown, and that's not big. But we do a lot in that space, and we do it well. We've learned really how to be an urban. Because there's a lot of challenges being a small store like that in a downtown space, and we've figured it out. And
you sure have.
We still believe in downtown, and we're happy to be there, and we still believe in the market, and we're excited about all the changes that are coming. It's another evolution to the downtown that we've seen happen in the past, and we're excited to see what the new evolution. We're excited the city's investing in the market, so there's lots happening.
Yeah, well, really well said, Pat. Rocco, Pat, congratulations on all your success so far, and really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the Sam Laprade Show today.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. And I'll see you guys soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
I'll be in soon. That is Rocco and Pat Nicastro, co-owners of La Bottega, and of course, the cafes that they mentioned as well. Just another one of these incredible Ottawa success stories. And I hope for those of you that did not realize, that 64 George Street, where they're located, an Italian grocer since 1923, carrying on that, and I know they're honored to, but just carrying on that incredible legacy from the Sasso family. Charles Sasso, if I recall correctly, took over the store from his parents, and he's a good friend and business partner of the with the Nicastro family. He was so determined to carry that someone would carry on that business, and he certainly chose the right family to do that. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more. This is Derek Fage filling in on the Sam Laprade Show. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
This is a man's heart, a heart in desperate need of medical attention. But because 78% of Indigenous people experience racism in healthcare, he may not get the help he needs. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
Hi, I'm Meg from Fit Over 50, and I'm here with Fit Finley. I want to invite you to join my upcoming workout, which is focused on upper body and lower body stretches. No equipment is required. All you'll need is a chair. Hope to see you there.
Fit Over 50 with Meg, weekday mornings at 8:30 on Rogers TV.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university. So they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone. But I worry about and take care of my guys. So even when I know they're not driving, sometimes that means bringing them a little surprise. And then they had a drink to me.
Brought to you by Smart Serve Ontario and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Sam Laprade Show. Derek Fage here, filling in for Sam. Sam off for a couple of weeks. I think this is a great segue, right, from talking to Rocco and Pat, co-owners of La Bottega, and of course we talked about the growth and the incredible, history behind it. A great success story here in the city of Ottawa. The segue is great because I know someone that's passionate about the business community here in Ottawa is Ottawa Board of Trade CEO Su-Ling Ching. Su-Ling, good afternoon. Oh, we don't have her yet. Okay, we're just waiting to get her. So, if you're not aware of Su-Ling's work in the Ottawa Board of Trade, they do such a great job bringing the business community together. They put on summits quite often. They bring various stakeholders together to discuss, how to grow our city. They've been a big part of, just talking to Pat and Rocco there, they have certainly been a big part of that revitalization of that downtown core, being a part of those conversations, because that's going to be just an incredibly important part of this city moving forward. There's a lot of issues down there. We've talked about it on the show before, on the Talkback Hour with David Smith. When we talk about that revitalization and what's important to see down there, and how to grow downtown, and how to get more housing there, and how to make sure we don't just concentrate on the tourism aspect, because more important than simply tourism, which I know Su-Ling would say is a core issue for sure, to make sure that we have an attractive downtown so that when people come here, they want to remain down there. But more housing. We need more affordable housing, because it's the residents of Ottawa that are going to sustain that downtown core for long periods of time. You can't just concentrate and rely on the fact that, tourism is going to support all those businesses, because we do get a dip, right? Like almost any city, not just in Canada, but many cities around the world, right? We have our high times when we're getting lots of tourism, and then you have your low times where you may be getting less people. So it's very important to look at that downtown, and I believe we have her on the line now. Su-Ling Ching joining us, CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Good afternoon, Su-Ling.
Hello, Derek. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? I understand that you just came out of a meeting. Is there anything out of that meeting that perhaps you could share with us? Or
no, I'm outside here, and I was invited to a reception very kindly by Lisa McLeod's office.
Oh, nice.
And so we're hosting the Ontario Caucus here in Ottawa today. So I'm here with my friends from Invest Ottawa and Area X.O, and they've got beaver tails and poutine, and so we're just waiting for all of the guests to arrive, and I believe we're expecting the premier as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that I have you come on right after Rocco and Pat Nicastro. We're just talking about the fact that they're celebrating 100 years of that Italian grocer. Of course, they took over in 1995, but that's been around as an Italian grocery store since 1923, and the way that they talked about that area and how proud they are to be a part of it, and regardless of the challenges, how much Su-Ling they want to continue to be a part of it. Let's talk Byward Market a little bit, and it must be nice for you to hear from a business like that and a locally owned, operated business like that, right?
It's a wonderful story, and Derek, we just had the first board meeting of our new board of directors last week, and we were talking about that very subject, that there are challenges that we're facing all across the country and our economy around the world, and specifically in Ottawa, we have a unique set of challenges and opportunities which you and I have discussed on your show before. But what we're really pleased about is when we see the pride and the passion of the business leaders in Ottawa, like Rocco and businesses like that. And it just compels us as a business association, as the voice of business, to work really closely with our elected officials at every level of government and our local partners to make sure that we are creating an environment in which businesses can grow and compete.
Well, and an environment as well, Su-Ling, that allows, that gives opportunity. I shouldn't say allows, it gives opportunity to businesses like that, small businesses like that, to be able to grow and prosper. And I think that to a certain extent, some people have been disappointed when you look at, Lansdowne Park and, big box stores and a car dealership going in there and things like that, instead of, the smaller mom and pop shop, style of businesses that are so incredibly important to a community, Su-Ling.
I agree, and I think from a policy perspective that we need to make sure that we are giving opportunities to those kinds of businesses that have unique offerings that encourage that entrepreneurial spirit. That's where the innovation and creativity comes from. It builds the culture that we have uniquely in our city. And so there's a policy piece to play there, but we as a community, Derek, as you well know, have a piece to play in that as well, and consciously making sure that we're supporting those businesses that support our community.
You must have been pretty excited about the news. We talked about this earlier in the week on the Sam Laprade show, but that bylaw amendment that would allow grocery stores to be constructed in certain types of zones. Just being able to bring food retailers like supermarkets, butcher shops, bakeries, delicatessens, produce outlets, farmers markets in an additional 135 zones in citywide. That for the business community must be exciting.
Yeah, for the business community and for planning our economy overall and making sure that we're very nimble in what the changing market needs are, for sure. So, and those are the kinds of policies we need to be looking at and be consistently reviewing and looking for new opportunities to build the economy that way.
Well, I can hear there's a lot of action behind you there.
Yeah, Lisa's just speaking now.
Nice. Well, I'll let you get back to that, Su Ling, because we've got the news coming up anyway, and always appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining me.
I hope to see you at the golf tournament in August, Derek, too.
All right,
Just remind everybody.
Okay,
that
let's stay in touch.
The deadline is on the 14th.
On the 14th? Okay, excellent. Yeah, make sure you get into that obj.ca to find out all the information to get involved in that. Again, Su Ling Ching, CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade, joining us. And if you didn't realize about that amendment, just a really important one. I mean, the city planner, Mitchell Lesage, told councillors early this month that this is sort of a general housekeeping amendment. Well, I would go further than that. I mean, this was something incredibly important. I mentioned an important opportunity for the business community to bring in food retail into different parts of the city, but more importantly for us as citizens, right, where we can have those food retails where we don't have to travel long distances to make sure that we can get there by public transit easily, or better yet, actually get there by foot. That 15-minute neighborhood that is part of that Ottawa master plan. All right, we got your news coming up in just a moment. I will